It was 2 months ago this week that Jake and Rebecca Haro told police in California that the Mrs. Haro, had been attacked in a parking lot and that their 7-month-old baby Emmanuel had been kidnapped from them. They sobbed and sobbed on camera, pleading with us all to help them find their baby. But it didn't work. Both of them were arrested instead, and both of them were charged with murder. The sad part of this is that baby Emmanuel has not been seen since. The detectives say that that little baby may have in fact been killed days before that whole phony kidnapping story.
So it's been a while since we've last had any updates about baby Emmanuel Haro. Now, if you don't recall exactly what was going on in that case, I will link my prior videos about it down below. But the TLDR of all of that is that a little baby named Emmanuel went quote-unquote missing, and the parents were both deeply suspicious from the get-go. In fact, people basically immediately suspected them just because the story they told was not inconceivable, but overall unrealistic in the sense of they alleged that their baby was kidnapped, taken from them, went missing, and that's really all she wrote. There was no real reasoning as to why that happened, how it happened in a parking lot full of cameras. It just didn't add up. Now, not all that much has been going on in that case until now. So, one important thing is that even as of a month ago, Emmanuel's father, Jake Haro, claimed to be innocent. That has changed. Drastically changed as of a couple of hours ago, and I think we should discuss it because really what we found out now is that he's been bullshitting the whole time, something that anyone with a brain cell predicted already, but the fact that he's admitting it now makes everything else look ridiculous because, of course, nobody believed his claims to begin with, but there was a tiny, tiny, tiny shred of a possibility that he actually wasn't lying. Now we all just have proof that he was bullshitting the entire time, and he was lying the entire time, at the expense of his child, if his child is still alive, which he's not. With that being said, I found an article kind of going over what went down in court, so that'll also be linked down below. Father of missing baby Emmanuel Haro pleads guilty. The investigation began when the baby's mother told authorities that the toddler was kidnapped outside a sporting goods store in an account that investigators said was not true. So it gives a little bit of a summary of the case. I'm going to skip that since we already went over it. But it says, Jake Haro has now pleaded guilty to second-degree murder with his sentencing expected to be held on November 3rd. Rebecca Haro was scheduled to have her preliminary hearing on November 3rd. The couple also has a 2-year-old child who has since been taken into custody by Riverside County Child Protective Services, according to authorities. Now, this part about there being a second child is something that I don't recall ever reading, and perhaps it's just my memory, but I really don't recall that being part of the narrative. And that's actually a very significant aspect of the narrative because if Emmanuel Haro died being, well, you'll find out about this in a second, but died being mistreated, abused, tortured, and so on, if that is his cause of death, then the other child was probably enduring something similar, or there's at least the possibility that he was enduring something similar. So the fact that they even waited until now to have the child under Child Protective Services care is crazy to me. Also because couldn't they have, quote unquote, used the child in terms of determining, oh yeah, look, this child is mistreated. Something probably happened similarly to the child that is quote unquote missing. I don't know. I found that very surprising. And I found it also very surprising that this wasn't more of a headline because if you did abuse and kill your baby, I'm kind of tending to believe that this other child has gone through something as well. It's hard for me to believe that this other child is unscathed. Right. Jake Haro was convicted in 2021 for cruelty to a child and in 2024 for being a felon in possession of a handgun. And this is also where they fucking lost me. I mean, they lost me from the get-go, but they lost me here specifically because you have a father who was convicted in 2021 for cruelty to a child, and for me, that's kind of case closed. He should not be allowed near children, end of. He shouldn't have custody of his children, end of. So already in 2021, the alarm bells should have been going off, right? And this is another one of those cases where I do think that the justice system either is too lenient or they give you a kind of slap on the wrist and they let you go on as if nothing happened, right? Because if you are convicted for cruelty to a child, but then you can still maintain the custody of your children, or you're still allowed to be around children, I don't understand what the long-term consequence of your crime to begin with is, right? Like, sure, you have a record, but beyond that, you're living a relatively normal everyday life. And I think that that's a way to fail children. But let me not go off. An arrest warrant was filed for Jake Haro in the child cruelty case in October 2018 involving a baby girl. Authorities responded to his home after the girl was admitted to a hospital with multiple broken bones. According to the court documents, Jake Haro told investigators that he accidentally dropped the girl on a sink as he bathed her. Doctors reported rib and skull fractures and a brain hemorrhage, according to the court documents. Jake Haro pleaded guilty to felony child endangerment and was sentenced to felony probation for 4 years in order to serve 180-day in jail on a work release program, the Riverside County District Attorney said. So that also to me is crazy, because let's rewind a second. So he said that he dropped the girl on a sink as he bathed her. So the implication is that he was bathing the child in a sink, meaning that the child was a baby, as indicated here. Breaking bones, fractures, all of that on babies is crazy work. Also because it's more difficult, quote unquote, to break their bones because of their flexibility, or like their malleability, I suppose. So you know it's serious when a baby breaks bones, right? There's a reason that you rarely see it because of the flexibility and malleability. So that's disgusting in and of itself. It's also crazy to me that you're giving that type of benefit of the doubt, because honestly, probation for 4 years and 180 days in jail on a work release program, that seems like nothing to me. Maybe I'm biased there, but that does not seem like much of a consequence, to be honest. During a 45-minute news conference last month, Riverside County District Attorney Mike Hestrin said baby Emmanuel was the victim of child abuse over time and eventually succumbed to those injuries. The search continues for the baby. The couple also has a 2-year-old child who has since been taken into custody by Riverside County Child Protective Services, according to the Sheriff's Department. The fact that there's a 2-year-old child also, to me, indicates the fact that this child was very likely also abused. And the reason why I point that out because of the 2-year-old thing is there's not much of an age gap there. If this kid was significantly older, it might have been a different story, a different context, whatever. The fact that this is also relatively a baby, quote unquote, not a newborn, but still, you have another kid that you dropped in a sink and broke their bones. This could easily be a repeat scenario of that, right? That's just my initial interpretation of that. It's hard for me to believe that this 2-year-old was untouched. Yeah, so the clownery in terms of this case is just all-encompassing, because as of September 2nd, Jake Haro, who was already behind bars at that point, said in an interview with a Southern California news group that he was innocent and completely cooperative, right? And then there were also pictures of him walking around in what looked like desert land with the police. So this is why I'm saying, like I said earlier in the video, that the bullshitting levels are at an absolute peak, because it's one thing to claim that you're innocent and then have nothing to do with the police. It's another thing to say that you're innocent and make them go on this wild goose chase in God knows where in the desert, knowing full well where the body is, because you cannot convince me that Jake Haro doesn't know where the body is. So he's just, walking around with the cops knowing they're in the wrong place, or even pointing them to the wrong places, to further propagate this idea that he's innocent and has no idea where the corpse of this tiny baby is. I don't understand that. And more than anything, I think that by doing that, he has bullshitted everyone so much, especially the public, that no one's going to believe anything he says now. Because not only did you lie, but you made people feel stupid if they gave you the benefit of the doubt. And so now, even the people who were, quote unquote, on your side, they don't want to have anything to do with that, and rightfully so. And even the courts, I don't really know how they're going to believe you when you willingly misled the police, right? Or at least pretended to be cooperative and just watched them fumble around as you didn't indicate anything to do with the baby or the baby's whereabouts when you know where the baby is. So just as a quick note, because the other article didn't mention this is from the New York Post. Haro copped to a second-degree murder charge, as well as to charges of assault causing bodily harm to a child and filing a false police report during a hearing in Riverside County Court in California this morning. Thursday morning.
Hi everybody, Garrett Hoddle. I'm still outside the Riverside Hall of Justice where we're continuing our coverage of Jake Haro's guilty plea to second-degree murder of 7th-month-old Emmanuel Haro. I want to tell you a little bit about what it was like in the courtroom. Jake pled guilty to the court, so the DA's office was not aware this was going to happen today. You can see him crying. He was very emotional. His public defenders, the attorneys representing him, were there consoling him. You could hear them asking him, "Are you ready for this?" Meanwhile, on the opposite end of the courtroom, you couldn't see Rebecca from where I was sitting because her attorney, Jeff Moore, was blocking the view, but you could hear her rocking back and forth saying, my baby, my baby." It was a very emotional scene. We have a hit right here at 12:30. Be sure and stay tuned to News Channel 3.
So the fact that he admitted to lying and even filing a false report, to me says that anything he says from here on out, if it's not fact-checked, which I don't even know how much can be fact-checked other than him saying where the body is and them finding the body there, none of it is credible unless it's fully backed up, which should be the case regardless. But I do think people were willing to give him a benefit of the doubt, even if there were certain things that weren't fact-checked. And now there's really no reason to, even though I think the majority of the public already thought that something was off about this case. The other thing about this case that's interesting is that his wife, Rebecca Haro, who is charged with murder, she pleaded not guilty to an updated criminal complaint. It's also odd for me to understand what exactly not guilty means in the context of Rebecca Haro, because there's no way you can convince me that she had no idea what he did, what happened, that she has no knowledge that makes her guilty. Does that make sense? Also, aside from the fact that, so this child was also assaulted, abused, beat up, whatever you want to call it. It's impossible for me to believe that she wasn't aware of that she didn't witness that she had no idea, especially if she had any idea of what Jake Haro was convicted of back with the 2018 incident. So her pleading not guilty, I'm just wondering, what is the context of that? Not guilty, how exactly, and how is that even believable in the first place? I really want to see where this goes once November 3rd, I believe it is, comes up, to see what type of sentencing Jake Haro is going to get, what's even going to happen with Rebecca Haro's case, if they ever find the body of Emmanuel Haro. And I wonder if at some point they're going to tell Jake Haro he might get less time if he actually admits to where the body is and they find it. I have no idea. It is very odd how events have unfolded, mainly because this case started months ago, and to just bullshit for months on end to then just be like, oh, actually it was me. I don't know. I kind of expected him to either stick with his original story or to immediately admit, but not this weird middle ground. Anyway, you guys can let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always, and I'll catch you guys next time.